Future Dana here. We're trying to reach 10,000 subscribers, and you can help us out by sharing the channel and clicking the subscribe button. And when we reach 10,000, we're going to do a giveaway. So if you want to know what that's about, help us out. Hi, Dana here. Welcome to Solo and Create. I'm glad you joined us today. And if you like what you see, be sure you click that subscribe and like button. Also, we have a Patreon page where you can support us in that way with multiple tiers, and I do offer bonus content for my Patreon members. Also, on my Etsy shop, I have sewing kits for most of the tutorials that we have on the channel. For today's project, we're going to be making the Sharpie tie-dyed fabric for a tote bag. And in this video, I'm only going to show you how to make the Sharpie fabric, and then I'll do a separate tutorial on how to build the bag. So, let's get started. For today's project, we're going to be making the Sharpie tie-dye portion of a tote bag. And as you can see, this is one side of my bag, and then this is the other. And so what you want to do to create that, you're going to need the following supplies. You're going to need some either unbleached muslin or bleached, and you can see the difference. Unbleached, of course, is usually kind of a creamy color, and the bleached is typically a white. And you want to cut that fabric, if you're making a project, you want to cut it to the size that you need to create your project. So for the tote bag, that is 10 inches by 15 inches. Then you're going to need some Sharpies, and the only kind of Sharpies that don't work as well are, of course, your metallics, because they don't bleed as well as the regular Sharpies. And then the fine line Sharpies you can use, but they will still leave an outline. They won't bleed like a regular tie-dye. But if you want to create an outline, like on this one, we did an outline and then just use the regular Sharpie so it kind of looks like flowers on a vine. And like that. So if you're going to do some outlining in your shapes, then you'll use a fine tip, but otherwise you want to use just a regular tip Sharpies. And I have a range of Sharpies because I get them at back to school time, so I have every color of the rainbow almost. But you don't need that many. You can use just 2 or 3 in your project. Then you're going to need some alcohol, and it's just regular alcohol you use in your bathroom, that isopropyl, and you can buy that anywhere, Walmart, Dollar Tree, wherever. You are going to need a spray bottle that does a fine mist spray, and I have mine in an old Best Press sample bottle, or you can find these small spray bottles at like Dollar Tree or Walmart. And you just want to put out straight alcohol. Nothing else is mixed in there. It's just a straight alcohol in the bottle. So to get started, I'm going to do a smaller piece so we can talk about and we can work with it easier and you can see it easier than the big piece of fabric. You also want to work on some kind of surface, because Sharpie does bleed through. You want to work on a surface that you can protect. So I like to use a cookie sheet. And then when we spray our project to make it bleed, we're going to add some paper underneath it. So I'm going to take my fabric, and you want your fabric to lay nice and flat. So if it's wrinkled, you'll want to press it, but you want it to lay nice and flat. And then kind of decide what you want your design to look like. And bright colors work better than the pastel colors. Just because they show up better on the fabric. So I think I'm going to start off, and usually a geometric pattern works well because it kind of bleeds. So I'm going to start off with just by doing some circles. And you want to leave space in between them so that when it bleeds, it kind of runs together and creates that tie-dyed look. So I'm just going to do some circles here. And then I'm going to come back in with another color. I think I'm going to do my pink. And I'm going to do a spiral right here in the center. And you can make this go, you know, as detailed or as quick as you want it to. I think here I'm going to do some squares. And you want to kind of fill those in, because the more ink you have, the more it's going to bleed. And your fabric does kind of move on you, so you kind of have to hold it down a little bit. But you're not trying to make these perfect necessarily, because you are going to make them bleed and tie-dye. One thing I forgot to mention, on your unbleached or bleached muslin, you want to make sure that that is 100% cotton fabric. If it's got too much polyester in it, it does not bleed well. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to do some squiggles out here. And kind of the exciting part is you never know how it's going to bleed. So it's all kind of a mystery. And then I've got some blue. And let's do some triangles. I think I'm going to space those out more. And the other thing you want to remember is, especially if you're going to sew it into a project, is you want to be sure that you leave enough space on the outside. So you don't want to put your design too close to the edge. Like my daughter did this one, and she put it way close to the edge. So when we stitch that into a project, it's going to cut off a good portion of that pink. So you just want to remember that. And let's see. Let's do another green. And let's just do some dashes. And let's do this last purple. And I think I'm going to finish off with some other purple dots, kind of in a brighter color, that are a little bit bigger. Okay, now we have our design. And if I wanted to, if you wanted that tie-dye to go all the way out, then you could put some outlying just kind of dashes, or like my husband did this one, and he drew a heart in the corner for his bag. And on this one, he just put some dots and then just, you know, kind of radiated it out from the center. So I think I'm going to leave mine like this. And now we're ready to spray it with the alcohol. Before we do that, I'm going to take a piece of white copy paper and put underneath mine, because I want to save that copy paper, let it dry, and use it in a junk journal. And I'm hoping to do some tutorials on how to make a junk journal in the future, and so I'm going to incorporate this paper in a junk journal. And you just want something underneath it so it will kind of absorb a little bit. You could also use just a regular paper towel if you wanted to, but I'm just going to use some regular copy paper. Then you take your alcohol, and you want to start with what you want to bleed first. So I think I'm actually going to start on this outside circle and then kind of move into my center. And as you spray it, you just want to lightly spray it. See how it's going to kind of bleed. And then if you want it to bleed a little more, of course you're going to add just a little bit more alcohol. And it does take a few minutes for it to start. You're also going to want to do this in a room where you have a little bit of ventilation, because you're going to start to smell that alcohol spray. And see how the yellow is coming out of that green, which kind of gives you a really cool effect. And then I'm just going to do the center, and then I think I'm going to come back and do this middle section. And then if I want it to add a little bit more to the outer edge, because now my fabric, you can tell, is pretty saturated. And then you're just going to let it dry, because it will take a few minutes for it to kind of bleed in because of that alcohol. And the longer you let it sit, the more it is going to kind of bleed. And you will notice that some Sharpies don't bleed as well as others. And I don't know really why that is, if it's because they're all Sharpie brand, if it's just the pigment in that particular Sharpie doesn't bleed well, like the bright purple really bled well, the green, but this kind of turquoise blue didn't really do a whole lot. Yellow did. But it really does make kind of a cool look. So I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about how to permanently set your tie-dyed Sharpie fabric. Now we're going to try kind of a different method, and I'm going to see if I can recreate what my daughter did on this one. And she drew like a vine kind of thing, and then we're going to use an eyedropper and just drop the alcohol onto it rather than spraying, where it doesn't bleed everything. So I'm still going to use my regular size Sharpie, and I'm going to just draw a vine. And you know, a vine just kind of goes its own way. And you still want to leave a good bit of space in between, so that when it bleeds, you have space. And this is a good way to kind of fill in a big space on a project if you wanted to, and still have this Sharpie effect, but do it a little quicker. Then we're going to take our other colors, and we're going to just she just put some little like dashes, almost kind of looks like grass, in certain places. So we're just going to kind of do that. And as you notice, she did not put them kind of in the V's. She put them more on the stalk, what I would call the stalk part. So we're going to do some here. Just kind of spread their colors out. And I'm going to do this neon green just to see if the neon kind of bleeds differently. And a lot of the fun of this type of a project is just literally playing around with different things. Just trying. And muslin is very cheap and inexpensive. So I think I want a brighter pink. Let's try this pink. All right. Then again, because I want to use my paper in a junk journal, and I even tested my markers on it, but that's not going to matter. And I'm going to put that underneath. Then we're going to take our eyedropper, and instead of spraying, we're going to put our alcohol, just drop it on the colors. All right. Then again, because I want to use my paper in a junk journal, and I even tested my markers on it, but that's not going to matter. And I'm going to put that underneath. Then we're going to take our eyedropper, and instead of spraying, we're going to put our alcohol, just drop it on the colors. And this gives us a little more control over where the alcohol goes, and gives us a little bit different effect. And as you can see, it kind of just, whoops, I missed one. It kind of just gives you a more controlled effect on how it bleeds on your project. So when we come back, I'll show you how to heat set this and get it ready for the next step. Now our fabric is completely dry, and I put mine outside. I live in Texas, so of course in the summertime it's very warm, so I put mine outside, and it did not take long at all for it to completely dry. And if I lift up this paper paper's not completely dry, but it does give me a really cool effect to use in a junk journal. So the next step, you want to kind of set your, of course Sharpie is permanent, but I always like to set mine with heat. And I put a terry cloth down on my ironing surface just in case any of the Sharpie does bleed. I don't want it to get on my ironing surface. And then you just put your iron on a cotton setting, so it's typically the highest or close to the highest setting on your iron. And then you just want to iron it lightly, and it is ready to incorporate in your project. So there's our first one. And then our second one, when we did just the dropper, it only took about 2 or 3 minutes to dry, and it is ready to iron. And now it is ready to incorporate into your project. Share a comment below of your design ideas so that we can all learn from each other. I hope you liked today's project, creating a Sharpie tie-dye look for your bag. And check back for the full tutorial on how to create the tote bag. So, see you in the next one.